This is the Today with Tally podcast.
And with that, we're honored to be joined by Christian Collins, the founder and president of the Texas Youth Summit. We're going to talk about the inspiration behind the Texas Youth Summit and just exactly what the mission is in inspiring today's youth to get involved. And with that, Christian Collins, how are you, sir?
Great, Tally. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all that you do for veterans and to spread the conservative message. And I'm just really grateful to be with you today.
Hey, man, thank you so much for saying that. And look, I mean, you do a ton, not only here in the local community here in the Houston surrounding areas, but I mean, you've become a national voice for the young conservative movement. You know, like back in the day, you know, they say, hey, look, typically conservatives become conservative when they start adulting, you know, like say early to mid 30s into your 40s. And today, it seems as if that's kind of changing a little bit, and we're starting early. You know, we're getting folks way before their time to buy into the system that is America first, family first, God first, and that is everything we need. All those are the hallmarks that we need to run a free, fair society in this country. And, you know, really, I mean, look, faith, family, and freedom. And those pillars right there are what's been missing from this country for such a long period of time. I know we went through some dark periods with other, you know, administrations and stuff like that. But I mean, look, you're really standing in the gap here, and you're taking this head on.
Well, thank you so much. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we've really got to reach young people. It's important that people understand it. It was young people that founded our country. And so we need young people to step in that gap again and be raised up to be leaders. And that's what we hope to accomplish at this conference. You know, my personal mission statement that I've had for 10, 15 years, and whatever role that I've done, I've been a college teacher working at Lone Star College for the better part of 11, going on 12 years now. I did college ministry there. I also worked for Governor Greg Abbott's first campaign for governor and Senator Ted Cruz, and, you know, multiple members of Congress as senior advisor or campaign manager. I've been a consultant and worked for nonprofits and businesses. In whatever I do, my goal has been to encourage people to faith in Christ so that they use their God-given talents and abilities and resources for His glory. You know, that's my personal mission statement. And for the Texas Youth Summit, we started that in 2019. That has been my assignment in this season, and I've really worked to use that as a tool to get young people to have the right worldview. We can talk more about that, but it's not just about calling yourself a Christian, because I mean, in the Bible Belt South, I think about everybody calls themselves a Christian. Maybe you're Catholic or Protestant, whatever, but I mean, you're a Christian, right? But it's about having the right worldview. And so if you are a Christian, then it affects your worldview, what you believe, and ultimately how you vote.
God had a plan for you, and He put you right in the position. 2019, as if He knew 2020 was going to be coming, and our country's never been the same. The world's never been the same again. Yeah. So at least you had a little bit of a head start getting out in front of 2020, because I mean, look, 2020, 2021, 2022, churches in the, you know, in the country were under attack. Our, you know, school boards were attacking mothers, and they were even getting labeled as domestic terrorists for standing up for their children because of the indoctrination that was happening from sea to shining sea. Now, what exactly is the inspiration behind the Texas youth movement? And are you guys out there protecting these mothers to give them a voice so they could stand up in their communities and fight back against all this insane policy?
You know, we're friends with groups like Concerned Women for America. They sponsor us. Moms for America was involved in the past, and Moms for Liberty. So these are all great groups that we want to elevate and be a part of this conference. You know, in 2019, I had some experiences in my earlier life growing up in a pastor's home. And even though I was a, pastor's kid, I strayed a bit, not just morally, but, just ideologically. I really liked the idea of a Black president, and I consider myself, someone who's just, my own thinker. I think for myself, and I liked that. I think a lot of young people did. I ultimately didn't end up voting for Barack Obama, but there was a time where I was just really interested in him, and I thought that I wanted to support him. I liked that he came from humble beginnings, and I think that's really relatable for many middle-class Americans. And so was reading his books. I joined the College Democrat group in college for a while. My teacher, who was a very nice lady, a liberal lady, she showed us Michael Moore videos in class. And so I thought I was liberal on gun control and climate change and these different issues. And it was my dad who turned me on to Rush Limbaugh, and may God bless Rush Limbaugh, and may he rest in peace. My dad turning me on to Rush Limbaugh really helped me kind of shift my perspective. And as I started my junior year of college, I felt that I was a conservative now. And so I still wasn't a Christian, but I was a conservative. I debated for college Republicans against the University Democrats in college. And, some of these experiences were very formative for me. And I got to meet, local congressmen and things like that. And so going forward, I realized, though, there weren't that many groups around outside of college Republicans that could really, bring young people together with politicians, with political influencers. And I really wanted to create something like that. Eventually, I'd always kind of had, a vision for something that I wanted to do, with, a conference or something. But I didn't really know what it would be like. And that said, I went off to, I should back up and just say how I got to the point where I really started to become a Christian. I gave my life to Christ before my senior year of college. And when I gave my life to Christ, there was a time that I felt like I didn't care about politics or anything anymore. I just wanted to be sold out to Jesus, which is admirable and altruistic. But I was thinking about going to seminary. My dad was a pastor. My dad said, I think that's a good thing for some people, but you've given yourself so much to politics. Maybe you should just stay open to being involved in it in some way. And if you want to go to seminary later, you can. And so I went off to grad school and actually got a degree that enabled me to teach at the college that I'm teaching at now, Lone Star College, and it was a communication degree. I did some college ministry stuff where I did some ministry training at the college level, but it wasn't as comprehensive, as what it could have been if I would have gone to seminary anyway. And so I came back and after grad school, and I was volunteering for a Republican event, and I met someone and got involved on campaigns, and I was doing college ministry at the same time. And but it was really my second job getting to work under Rafael Cruz, Ted Cruz's father. Reverend Cruz is really special. He escaped communist Cuba and came to America with $100 sewn to his underwear. So he has a really interesting perspective. And that experience, getting to be with him and spend, hundreds, if not thousands of hours with him, really rubbed off on me, just seeing how he would speak to churches and talk about the importance of connecting your faith and your politics helped me realize, okay, politics can be a ministry if you look at it through the right lens. Don't look at it through the lens of it's separate, because if you do things under the glory of God, everything you do, whether it be a podcast or law enforcement or in the military or whatever it is you do with your life, if you do it as unto God, it is sacred. And so that's the way I wanted to approach politics going forward. And, I haven't looked back. And so, though I did different jobs, and I eventually started the Texas Youth Summit, my mindset and my mission has always been the same: to glorify God and to bring others into a relationship with him, to point people to him. And I think as a Christian, you should have a conservative worldview. The Bible supports that on every issue, from gender to abortion and so many other issues. God has something to say about the issue of politics. He even has something to say about, just limited government. He actually has something to say about the vision of government. When Jethro was talking to Moses, and he created basically what the system we have today, a system of checks and balances, a system, federal, government, you got the state government, you got the lower level local government. And, from that, I mean, we can get a lot of learning from the Bible to help inform our politics.
You're full of knowledge. Heck, you're a teacher. You are a leader amongst not only men, but the youth of this country. All the way up into Rafael Cruz. There's a lot of folks that look to you for guidance and a lot of inspiration because you've kind of walked the walk. And you've really proved to everybody out there that, hey, man, look, I am in this for the good of the country. I am in this fight. And I want you guys all out there to know that you're not alone. And I'm going to do everything I can to bring this country together because Lord knows that we are as divided as we have ever been in this country. We have no gray area anymore. There's black and white. The liberal left, I just don't understand their mindset here. And it's not only an anti-American agenda, but it's a very dangerous agenda calling for the death of a president. And literally, I'm not sure if they even know what a president is supposed to do. They're supposed to govern and protect the people. And that's exactly what our president is doing in this country. And I've never seen a president operate like President Donald J. Trump on a world stage. I mean, what he's doing is truly remarkable. And when you have all these other countries in the world right now, they're saying, I want a Trump to be our president because we're getting overrun by immigration. We're getting overrun by this Marxist type, agendas that are coming in and destroying our country. So we need to stand with President Trump because, what he's doing right now, it's truly remarkable. But the Texas Youth Summit, okay, you're bringing folks together, all different walks of life in this area. You got folks coming in from across the country to speak. And again, you are inspiring and you are encouraging today's youth to have a strong America, a strong future of America. Now, I want to know exactly how this summit is set up and what exactly are you teaching these children?
Yeah, the summit is set up in such a way where we have youth, high school and college age youth have really been the emphasis. So initially when we did this in 2019 and 2020, it was just them. But through popular demand, so many parents wanted to come, and so we invited parents, and then they wanted to bring their younger teens. So if they're chaperoned, you can bring your younger teen and be a part of the summit as well. But we wanted to get young people who are closest to voting age, so like high school, college. Those are the most formative years of someone's life. And I read a book one time. It's called The Defining Decade: Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of It Now. And it's by Meg Jay. And I think it's really helpful to young people. I say all that to say, because one thing I got out of the book is just how formative those years are. They're figuring out who they are for the rest of their life. And so we want to put them on a path to be good citizens, responsible citizens who live biblically, to understand and appreciate the Constitution. They don't have to go work in politics. We're not necessarily advocating for that, though. I've had a really stellar student who she went to go work for Congressman Matt Gaetz, who was a speaker here. Then she joined and worked for the Leadership Institute, they're doing great things. It was founded by Morton Blackwell, and they train up young people all across the country in activism, and there's just incredible. And then she's now working for the Drug and Food Administration in Washington. So, her story started here at the Texas Youth Summit. And there's also another guy named Alex who came to the Texas Youth Summit, and he met his wife, and his story is totally different. They now have 2 children, and he's a precinct chair here in Montgomery County. So, that's his story. But we want young people to come here, and it's like a hub where you're encouraged through different sessions and worldview trainings on the issues of gender, I can talk about some of those speakers that we have in a second, but we want them to come here and it be a hub where there's action and they go out and do things. And I think that's incredibly important, more than just coming to a conference and being inspired and encouraged. It's that you're taking action. And so at the bare minimum, if everyone can be engaged and understand and appreciate, what's going on in our country and how blessed we are to have President Donald J. Trump in the helm. The guy was a millimeter away from death, and he cheated death, and he's now our president. And amid all of the ridiculous witch hunt lawsuits, and that he's now our president, and he's putting America back on the right path to make it great again. That's just incredible. But understand and appreciate, the time that we're in and how God's given us grace through President Trump, and recognize, what's going on in the news, how to interpret the news, and to be engaged civically that way, I think is incredible. But some of our speakers you asked about, we have Yamini Park. She escaped communist North Korea. She's defected from there. She has an incredible story and advocates for human rights. She's been on Joe Rogan's podcast and Young American Foundation's events and so many others she's worked with. She's incredible. We have Chloe Cole. She's a detransitioner. So she has an incredible story. She's only 21 years old, and she thought she was supposed to try and be a boy. So she tried to be a boy and cut off her breasts. And it's just terrible what, she had to go through because of false ideology and the confusion her mind must have been in. But now she's living in the identity that God has given her. There's only two genders, male and female, of course. And so she advocates to young people about the importance of this. And we don't know if she's ever going to be able to have children. That may be still a possibility, but because of testosterone and things like that, we'll see. But regarding being able to breastfeed her child one day, she's not going to be able to do that because someone, these doctors took that away from her, and she was just a confused child. So I can talk about a lot of the speakers, but I mean, Allie Beth Stuckey, she's just an incredible advocate for why Christians should be involved in politics. Congressman Wesley Hunt, he's a West Point graduate. It's a beautiful family, just a strong advocate for the Constitution, has one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, is a great ally of President Trump. So I appreciate him. He's done great work. You have Senator Ted Cruz, of course, who son of Rafael Cruz, and has an amazing life story of being here in America and understands the Constitution like no other. He's got a great IQ and just an amazing man. So honored to have worked with him in the past. You got Attorney General Ken Paxton, of course. He's been amazing on the Constitution and defending President Trump as Attorney General. I could go on. We got so many great speakers I'm excited about. Seth Gruber is a great pro-life activist. We got another great pro-life activist in Abby Johnson. She's a former Planned Parenthood director who stopped doing that to be a leader in the pro-life movement. And you have so many others that I could just go on and on and on about. But you see, these folks are coming to talk about issues that young people need to know about and care about. And so that's what we hope to drill through their heads is you have to have the right worldview on the issues. It's not enough just to call yourself a Christian. You need to know why you believe what you believe because, myself, I grew up in a Christian conservative home, but when I went off to college, it was evident that my house was built on the sand and not on the firm foundation, the rock. And so, just as scripture talks about when the storm comes, if your house is built on the sand, you have no firm foundation, you're going to be swept away. But when your house is built on the rock, you can have that firm foundation to push back and to fight back against false ideology. And when I say fight back, I mean civically, civilly, with a smile on your face like Ronald Reagan did. You can tell people they're wrong and smile about it and be kind about it. And that's what we want to help young people do, whether it's in their public schools or if that's in the university system, being able to push back against the lies of what's going on there. I know just 12 years ago when I was in college, they were trying to show us a movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, and the whole purpose of it was just to mock and ridicule Christianity. I know when I took a religion class, instead of a teacher trying to teach that class objectively, just a survey of all the religions and what they're about. I mean, that's interesting, right? But, the whole point was to deconstruct Christianity and tell us how it was all false and everything we had grown up believing perhaps was wrong. And so what you end up with in college is they're passing out condoms so that you'll have, sex on demand and whenever you want. And then there's young Christian kids who are looking for an ideology to back their lifestyle, because they might have cognitive dissonance if they're living wrong against the ways that they were taught by their Christian parents. So what they do is they look for some alternative view, like, hey, there is no God, or, morality is just all relative, and they don't live by what they were taught. And, and everything just starts to fall apart, and their foundation starts to crumble. And so maybe they're lonely and they're looking, for attention or friendships in the wrong places. They're drinking a lot of alcohol and having sex and learning all kinds of crazy things that are wrong and false. And that is what we want to guard against at the Texas Youth Summit. We want them to have the right values so that when they go off to college, they know why they believe what they believe, and they will stick to their beliefs. And they will, get out of college, go get good jobs, maybe start businesses. You don't have to go to college, by the way. There's a lot of successful people who did. Maybe they join our military. There's a lot of things people can do, but they build families. They have, amazing children who live and follow God. They're involved in their churches. They're involved in their communities, and they're strong biblical citizens. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm. I really like how you incorporate the faith, the family, and the freedom in inviting not only the youth, but the parents as well. Everything starts at home. Anytime that there is anything in this country that's wrong, it always says, where was the mom? Where was the dad?
Yeah.
Where was the leadership? And it all starts at home. So if you have that strong foundation of that family at home, and you using all of those godly type principles and attending church together and doing everything and living righteously, if you will, this right here are the building blocks that are going to continue to help our youth. And God knows that our youth in this country do need help. Are you seeing, look, I know that your event probably brings in a lot of successful children, because look, let's face it, how many kids are going to be going to a political youth summit, on their own accord, when you've got all these parties going on, you've got this and that, because there's a lot of bad stuff out there that kids get drawn into. Now, exactly what are you addressing with these kids? Like, what are the biggest issues of the day right now for kids?
Well, sometimes it's not even political, it's mental health. And we've tried to touch on mental health and fight against, teen suicide and just depression and things that people are going through. Maybe it's anxiety that causes this. But I think this generation is very much more open to talking about mental health. And, it's something that we need to address. It's not just mental, though. It's also spiritual. So we need to address the spiritual undertones of things that are going on and help them, because really the only way that we can help them is by pointing them to Jesus Christ. And so I think that's a really, really big thing. And, what flows from that is they're more open to, learning about, why the pro-life message is the correct one, and why that they should understand how to communicate how there are just two genders and defend what they believe. They're more open to learning the talking points and debating these ideas. I think all of these things go hand in hand. So you got to take care of people personally, and then they can learn what they should learn ideologically. And so we just want to encourage people and help young people find their way and be the very best that they can be. And so we do have a lot of parents that come, but we have a lot of people now that are coming that maybe they're empty nesters, and they have just wanted to be a part of this and so into what we're doing. And so anybody can come. It's ages 12 through 26, get in entirely free with promo code Texas Youth Pass. But if you want to come to our conference, anyone can come. You can buy a general admission VIP ticket and just be a part of what we're doing. If you're a business or organization, if you want to sponsor, that'll help us in a big way. It's because of our sponsors. We've got a great venue this year at the Woodlands Waterway Marriott, 30 year in a row. Last year we were streamed on Fox Nation and covered on Fox and Friends, and we've seen 10,000 young people come through our Texas Youth Summit events through the last couple of years, and we're just excited about what we're growing and what we're building, and good things are in store. Good things are in store. I know that's true just because I've seen the momentum. It's the proof is in the pudding. It's growing. It's going in a good direction. And I'm just thankful for friends like Donald Trump Jr., who have been a part of what we're doing for 4 years in a row. So he's done a great work, through the election. We've had, speakers like Senator Ted Cruz, as mentioned. He's been there 3 or 4 years as well. Charlie Kirk's been a part, Kayleigh McEnany, Riley Gaines, and so many other speakers who have just come in and supported what we're doing. And we're really grateful for the movement we're building here in Texas.
Where are we at right now in the United States of America when we're looking at our country on this political divide with, the culture war, with the indoctrination of children, men and women in sports? There's just the confusion is so real out there for a lot of people and look, there's a lot of kids out there that don't have fathers. They don't have mothers in their lives. So they're raising themselves through maybe teachers or coaches. And basically those guys are so influential is that, a lot of the times if those guys say something, that kid who doesn't have anybody to look up to and a role model, they're going to take what they say as gospel, or they're going to take whatever their social media influencer is as gospel and say, this is the truth, without them really doing any of their own research. Where exactly are we at? And is there hope for this country moving forward despite the insanity on the left and on the right? It's almost like there's a kettle and it's just going to blow. Because everywhere you go, the political strife is as high as I've ever seen it on social media. Even out in town, there's protesters, anti-protests. It's like, is this the new normal for our country, to just be so angry all the time?
I sure hope not. But, we are more polarized as a country, and it's only grown in that direction. Even from a gender perspective, like male and female young people, I think it has a lot to do with your cultural heroes and icons. On the girls' side, they really look up to Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift is a known active Democrat who, registers young people to vote at her her concerts. And so, she supported Kamala Harris, if I'm not mistaken. She supported Joe Biden. And young women who are listening to her and looking up to her, she's someone who's, pretty to them, someone who's successful, and, she's her own person. And there's a lot of admirable traits about Taylor Swift, but I just wish she was a Republican, and she's pointing young girls in the direction of the Democrat Party. And I guess because of issues like abortion, unfortunately, when it comes to the pro-life message, I think the national trend is that popular opinion is more in favor of abortion than it is in favor of the pro-life message. And so that's appealing to young women because they want to keep their autonomy and keep their options open. And they don't want to be responsible if they get pregnant. And so not to demonize any young woman for having to go through all that, but it's just explaining the situation. And young men, they're trending more conservative on the other hand. And you got, the Vaughn and Joe Rogan and all these podcasts where young men are getting their information from. And so they see these guys as entrepreneurs, very individualistic, kind of rugged and tough and, funny, and they're bros. Right. And so, young men, want to be more traditionally masculine, and they're looking for a dating partner who, espouses the more traditionally feminine values. But unfortunately, you're not really getting that from young women who, listen and coddle up to people like Taylor Swift. And so, what that could mean, and what that I hope it doesn't mean long term, though, but is less marriages and a lower birth rate in our country. And so for America to have a future, we have to be able to have children, because that's how you build a future. And we don't need to be importing all these people in from south of the border, and other places around the world, as much as we need to be, just as a country, having children, and we can get our workforce there. So I think not to get into the immigration issue, but I'm just saying, we are having some problems because of the ideological division that's even true among young people, girls and guys. And I'm just saying this could cause a problem long term as it relates to the workforce and birth rates in our country. So we've really got to make sure that we reach young women, especially. And we, at our conference, I'll just tie this back in, man, we try to have the best female speakers that we can get, from Riley Gaines. Of course, she's a swimmer who tied with Leah Thomas. And I say Leah loosely. It's a guy that called himself Leah, right? And he was a mediocre guy swimmer, and he tried to become a female. Obviously, you can't do that, but they tied, and they gave the award to him. And since then, her popularity has skyrocketed. Just talking about the importance of keeping men out of women's sports. But anyway, we have dynamic female speakers everywhere. We've had Candace Owens, we've had Kayleigh McEnany, as I mentioned, and we really want to reach young women. I think it's incredibly important to have women who can resonate with these young girls, and some of the boys, they come because they want to meet these girls at this conference, because if they go, if they're on the college campus, it's kind of, unless they're a part of a Republican club or they go to church, it's kind of hard to meet conservative women who have, the values you want to raise a family one day, So you got to be on the same page on this stuff. And so it's pretty cool to see how, people get together at our conferences.
And again, you're all about inspiring and encouraging tomorrow's youth for a strong America. Now, you were saying, immigration south of the border, 160 different countries, different countries over a 4-year period, 20 million unchecked, unvetted, illegal aliens came into this country. And look, immigration without assimilation is an invasion, period, the end. And when that happens, the allegiance to this country sinks lower and lower and lower. We have veterans in this country that are taking their own lives, 22 to 40 a day. What happens when those proud Americans who stood up and answered the call to service are taking their lives every day? Our national patriotism sinks lower and lower and lower every single day. So what you are doing at this Texas Youth Summit is imperative to a successful America. As we move forward, we need to get these kids understanding and knowing that, guys, this is the right way here. This is, and let us explain to you. Let us explain to you. Like you said, we are addressing the issues at hand in today's world and in today's society. And there's no better way than to get these really influential people in here. And when I say influential, I don't mean to say, oh yeah, we're going to get a bunch of con men and women in here and we're going to tell these kids exactly how to walk, talk, think, and all that stuff. No. Influential as in, look, I'm proven to be successful. I have proved it through life experiences. They may not all be good, they may not all be bad, but I'm here to give you great advice and encouragement and inspiration from my story. And this is how I did it. This is how I saw the light. Like you were talking about Chloe Cole. This is how I saw the light. I was over here in the dark until one day I saw the light. And now I want to go talk and tell my story to other kids that may be thinking that could have been just as confused as I was. And if I could save a life, well, I've done my job. But Christian Collins, thank you so much for coming on, man. I wish you the best of luck. The Texas Youth Summit, folks, in the Woodlands, Texas, over at the Marriott, September 19th and 20th. We're going to have Senator Ted Cruz. We're going to have Congressman Wesley Hunt. You, of course, the founder and the president, Christian Collins, Dinesh D'Souza. Look, we got some heavy hitters here. And, guys, the lineup just continues. Tons of sitting members of Congress and influencers from sea to shining sea. Christian Collins, we thank you for everything you're doing, and I wish you nothing but the best moving forward.
Thank you so much, Tally, for having me on. I look forward to seeing you at the Texas Youth Summit.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to bring the whole family, man. Or at least I got 2 out of the house and out of college, and I've got 2 more in high school right now, 1 senior and 1 junior. So this will be really good for them to see in here.
Well, send us their contacts and we'll sign them up. And whoever you want to bring, some friends or family, just let me know. And we'll take care of you. Look forward to having you there, buddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. For more information on the Texas Youth Summit, go to texasyouthsummit.com. That's texasyouthsummit.com.
This is the Today with Tally podcast.